The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to our webinar, Using the CB Scheme to Access the World Marketplace. Thank you for joining us. This webinar is being given by MET Laboratories. MET is a leader in the testing of electrical and electronic equipment for environmental hardiness, product safety, and electromagnetic compatibility. MET operates world-class labs in Baltimore, Maryland, Santa Clara and Union City, California, Austin, Texas, and also runs operations in China, Taiwan, Korea, and Italy. This webinar will run 30 to 45 minutes with an additional 15 minutes for questions and answers. Due to the number of registrants, all attendees will have their phones muted. If you have a question, please type it in the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. We will attempt to answer all questions at the end. If you're having technical difficulties, you can contact us the same way or call us at 330-418-9414, and we will try to resolve it quickly. Just a quick note on other upcoming events. On April 8th, MET will be hosting a Design for EMC and Regulatory Testing seminar in Santa Clara, California, and you can register for this at www.metlabs.com. Today's webinar is being presented by John O'Donnell. John is the Test Data Acceptance Program Manager for MET. At this point, I will hand over the presentation to John.
All right. Thank you, Tasha. I'd like to first, again, thank you all for attending this webinar. I'd like to present today a brief overview of the CB scheme, how it kind of works, how it works with MET, how it can benefit you. Again, I want to say this is a very overview view of everything, and some of these topics you could get into by themselves for an entire presentation. So if you have additional questions at the end, please submit those or add it to the feedback forms, or feel free to email me, which I'll give you my contact information at the end of the presentation. So that being said, I'll go ahead and present you with the overview or outline. First, I want to tell you a little bit about MET, what we do, and who we are. Then I want to get into the CB scheme and kind of how that generally works and the overview on that. The value is really the why you're here. Why should you attend this? Why should you utilize the CB scheme in future compliance projects? Then I want to give you a general process outline and how it works with MET, and then some general items on reports, certificates, marks, and then some general questions that I'm asked often, and then obviously there'll be a question and answer session at the end. My director, Rick Cooper, who's the director of the safety business line here at MET, will be attending the questions and answer session, so he'll help me field any technical questions that you may have about the CB scheme or anything you just generally want to discuss. Okay, a little bit about MET and who we are and what we do. MET's history. MET was founded in 1959 by Len Fryer. He is pictured here to the left. We were the first NRTL in the United States. We're accredited in Canada, and we're approved by IECLE in all of our laboratories for 1725 testing. 1992 is an important date on here that I marked, and it marks the beginning of our CB scheme. Participation, we are a NCB under the CB scheme, which is a national certification body, which means we can issue the nationally recognized mark of our country. We'll get into a little bit more about that on a later slide. Our U.S. lab locations, Baltimore, where I am located, is our headquarters and our national certification body office. We have a full CBTL here. A CBTL is a certification body test laboratory, which is a laboratory that can do testing to be used in a report which could grant CB scheme certification. We also have CBTLs in Union City, California, and Austin, Texas. Our international locations, we don't have any CBTLs in these offices, but they can help you through local partnerships, get CB scheme testing or U.S. Specific testing. So that's always an option for you to reach out to these offices. BWS Tech is a group that we have recently started working with in Korea. I've helped bring them online into the CB scheme under MET. So basically they are a CBTL outside of our corporate structure. CBTLs under your national certification body do not have to be part of your corporate structure. You can enter them. You can enter into an agreement with them to act as a CBTL for you to provide testing locally. The next slide is our accreditations, various accreditations that we have. Again, this is just a sampling. CB Scheme, NAVLab, NRTL, A2LA, Standards Council of Canada, FCC, Wi-Fi, TCB. You know, if it's electrical testing, we're probably into it and we're probably accredited. So if you have any questions on anything that we can do, you know, again, please feel free to let me know or ask me, and I will get you that answer. Okay, moving on, I want to go over the basic overview of what the CB scheme is and how it works. Basically, the IECEE is the International Electrotechnical Commission for Electrical Equipment. It's a worldwide system for conformity, testing, and certification of electrotechnical equipment and components. Basically, it was seen by various groups throughout the world that there were definitely barriers to trade when it came to electronics regulations. You'd have to send a product to the U.S. to be tested against U.S. requirements, and to Japan against Japanese requirements, Germany, and so on and so on. So they basically designed a system which is based on mutual multilateral recognition of the testing and reports that labs are producing. And basically, in recognition of that, we can grant national certification marks. It's basically based on those certificates that you're provided at the end of testing. You can take them and get national certification marks from various countries throughout the world. And I will provide you with a list of countries and how that works. As the IECE would say, the overall goal of the scheme would be one world, one certification, one mark. It's not exactly that yet. It's more of one world, one certification, and multinational marks. And I'll get into some of those markings as well in this presentation. Okay. IECEE.org is a great website. Everything we do is pretty transparent, and all the operational documents and how the CB scheme works is all presented on the website. Any information that you want to find out about the CB scheme, you can probably find it there. A list of labs, information on for manufacturers, frequently asked questions, different programs that are available to you, regulatory requirements section, and the CB Bulletin are very important sections. Going back, the regulatory requirements section is actually a really useful tool for manufacturers. You can click on that, and it'll have a form filled out by many of the participating countries on what exactly their national requirements are for their certifications. You know, it's very informative, and it does tell you, you know, do I need EMC, do I need safety, is it mandatory, voluntary, inspections, those type of things will all be covered in each individual country's regulatory requirement section. The CB Bulletin can be found here as well. I'll go into that more in depth, but the CB Bulletin is basically a bulletin of who accepts what standard and what their differences are to that standard. That's going to be very helpful, and I'll get into also addressing the differences between a IEC standard and a national standard, and you'll see a little bit more about what I mean there. Who participates in the CB scheme? I don't have to read through this list, but there's about 56 total countries right now. It's constantly growing, and I think one of the most important factors to just take away from this list is if you look at this and then look at a list of the you know, the 50 top economies in the world, you'll probably find a pretty matching list there. It's going to be most of the top economies in there that you want to reach. These are all the standard categories under the IEC. As you can see, there's various categories for different type of equipment, and a multitude of standards will fall underneath those equipment, addressing individual pieces of equipment. MET currently participates in 6 categories. We are a test laboratory and certifier for 4 categories, and we are a certifier for another 2 categories. We currently are a certifier and tester for IT, audio, video, medical, and measurement, control, and laboratory equipment. And we recognize 2 others, which are some of the household standards that are accepted in the U.S. We are a recognizer for those, as well as some of the tool standards. And I'll provide a full list within this presentation. This presentation will be available to you after, I believe, in a PDF format, so you'll be able to look at some of this information and go back over it if you want to after the presentation. IEC Standards. The IECE publishes many standards, test report forms, and various other documentation. It's highly suggested to manufacturers to buy the standard before beginning a test program to the standard. It's really invaluable and will save time and effort later in the process and make communication with your testing laboratory a lot easier if you can, just talk about clauses and reference those back and forth. Those things will be much clearer to you while you're looking at your equipment and while you're looking at the standard. Unfortunately, and this is a popular question, MET cannot provide IEC standards to manufacturers. There's various copyright issues and stuff there, but there are many good outlets online. I mean, you can buy directly from the IECE web store, which is a link on their website. You can buy through IHS, Global, or TechStreet. There's various outlets online that are authorized retailers of these standards. Okay, now getting into kind of why everybody's here. How does the CB scheme work? How can it benefit you? The added value to you in doing this as part of a test program. Basically, the purpose of the CB scheme is to gain global market access while limiting the testing requirements. It's not going to be automatic access, and I'll get into some of the requirements there, but it's going to greatly reduce your time to market and certification costs. These 2 factors are basically the 2 motivations between the creation of the CB scheme. The CB scheme rules allow for testing to be conducted at a single laboratory, and these results to then be accepted by another organization known as a recognizing NCB. That's kind of what I was talking about as far as MET recognizing some of the household standards and some of the tool categories, as well as the other standards that we're involved in as a test laboratory. Once your product is tested to an IEC standard for product safety, it shouldn't have to go through a full test program again for acceptance in IEC participating countries. That's kind of the rules that we've all signed on and agreed to, that we will accept another lab's certificate and issue our national certification mark. Granted, we're going to review it, make sure that we agree, but usually it's going to come without testing. That's the goal of the scheme. That's what we're trying to avoid. It allows manufacturers to work with any NCB of their choice rather than dealing with many different organizations. You can pick an NCB and a CBTL local to you, and they can provide that report to us, or you can provide it to MET or another organization and get national certification that way. The IECE is a quality organization, as I put it here, that audits each and every national certification body and CBTL to qualify them. Basically, this is how you know that you're getting a quality, unbiased assessment of your equipment. The base standard for our evaluations is ISO 17025. Many of you are probably familiar with ISO 9001, which is for manufacturers and basically focusing on product development and life cycle and things like that. 17025 is for test and calibration laboratories. basically focusing on quality issues, repeatability, accuracy of data, and those type of things. Okay, again, as I said, 17025 is the base for our accreditation. It's a common standard used by our accreditors, IECLE, NAVLab, OSHA, Standards Council of Canada. Basically, it's 9001 plus those additional requirements that I just talked about. The most interesting part of the way the CB scheme handles it versus other organizations is that it's a peer assessment scheme. So basically, our peers, our colleagues, competitors, really, come in and audit us. We were recently audited at all 4 of our locations, the 3 CBTLs plus the national certification body last year, successfully by our competitors. So it's a kind of an interesting perspective, and you really do gain something out of that, because they certainly are looking to make you better. I guess the best example of how it works is kind of an illustration. Like we've talked about, maybe a personal computer manufacturer in Japan wants to get their product certified for testing, our product for sale in a couple different countries. They would pick a laboratory that they want to work with, CBTL, NCB, and the laboratory would test it, and if successfully tested and evaluated to the standard, issue a test certificate. They can then provide that to national certification bodies in the U.S. or in Germany or both, and end up with the certification marks of Japan, Germany, and the U.S. with that one test program. And that's basically how it works. Now I want to get into generally the general process of how the CB scheme flows. This flow chart kind of depicts a scenario where an application is made for a brand new CB report and certificate, and how it would work submitting to other NCBs for national certification marks, just like we just kind of talked about. It's basically submission and then processing that application, evaluating and testing the equipment. And when I say testing, I mean evaluating to a standard. I can't stress that enough, that it's constructional requirements, it's markings requirements, it's everything that's involved in a standard. It's not just doing a couple tests here or there. The standards are going to dictate what testing is going to be required, and every product's different, so every product is going to go in individual test program to evaluate the hazards of that particular product. But getting back to this, the NCB would then issue the CB test certificate and report, and then you can take that, or we can take that, and go to another body and get you a certification mark that can be applied to your product, and then you can ship that product freely into that recognizing country. I'll get into a little bit about our market access program here at MET. We try to help clients out with getting these marks, and I'll show you some of the example marks that we can get you. But if you have a question on any additional things, please feel free to let me know, and I can look into that with we have a team of market access people here at MET, and that's their job, is to help our customers on the lab side, on certification body side, get those certification marks. It'll help them get a jump start into those countries. And the next slide is kind of a direct market acceptance. This would be an example of where a buyer or retailer just says that we just want to see the certificate. If you can show us that, we're good. So that's kind of another example of how it works. Probably a little bit less of this. That's why the first one was first. You'll see a little bit more of the recognizing version throughout the world. Big question, probably one of the biggest questions that I'm asked. That's why I titled this Big Question. After going through that, currently the system is designed so you test and issue a certificate once and then take that and get national marks. But just because you've covered the differences or you've covered U.S. requirements and got a CB certificate, that doesn't mean that you've met the burden of that particular country. You have to look at what that country requires. As far as additional items, there could be costs. Documentation is a popular thing. You might have to provide them with documentation, manuals in different languages. You might have to provide them with what you're going to use for power cords. Are inspections required on my product? These are kind of the differences that different economies have as far as national certification. That the basic testing and stuff is all going to be the same. But yeah, those are the basic differences. And I'll go into a little bit more specific on those in a couple slides. Okay, Met Market Access, as I mentioned, we have a team of people here at Met who work on market access or homologations. It's basically the activity of obtaining product acceptance for a given market or economy. We recently had a webinar on market access presented by that team, which is available on PDF through our website if you want to check that out. Or if you want to get in touch with them directly, please feel free to contact me. And basically, they help take the reports that are created, plus the documentation, plus any differences, and address those items with you, work with our partners throughout the world, and get you other certification marks. As I've listed here, here are some of the example certification marks. Obviously, there's the Met mark for Canada and U.S. There's Argentina. There's NAM for Mexico. There's Russia, China, Korea, Argentina, Australia, Japan. These are basically the different certification marks that can come out of CB testing. And we can help you with that if you don't know where to go, if you don't know who to talk to. We have a lot of different relationships. My main duty here is the third-party test data acceptance program manager, and I work with various labs throughout the world to help their customers access the U.S. and Canadian markets, and them to help us access their markets. Again, going into the country-specific requirements for national certifications, the national differences, regulatory requirements are all kind of posted on the IECE website. They're part of that CB Bulletin that I mentioned earlier. You can find that on the IECE website. National differences from an IEC standard are those requirements in the corresponding national standard where necessary to require with that country. So, for example, there is a UL 60950-1 is the standard for information technology equipment that we use in the NRTL program, and that is based off the IEC 60950-1 standard. So basically, it's the IEC standard plus the U.S. differences equal U.S. certification. That's basically how it works. Canada has a version. Europe has a version, and various other countries have a version, which is basically the IEC plus the differences. Met will address all available deviations and special conditions available to us during an IEC test program. We certainly want to cover every available economy to you in a test program, so if we tell you we're giving you a CB report, we're going to address every various country that we can as far as differences. That being said, it doesn't cover the additional items such as costs for certifications and providing them with various documentation and stuff, but we will evaluate and make sure that you have everything you need to go off to that recognizing NCB and get that mark. Again, as I said, there's many of the participating bodies issue national differences, group differences, those type of things, which are going to be their differences to the actual IEC standard. So it's not 100% harmonized. I mean, you have to consider the different power systems, different cord requirements, different electrical codes, and those type of things. So they still have to have a different standard because different national electrical codes aren't going to be considered in an international standard. It would just be too difficult to do. Again, some of the differences addressing different languages, markings requirements, different power systems, plug requirements, ratings, and certifications of subcomponents is also an issue. We're seeing more and more acceptance of those things, but still could be an issue depending on the regulations of the country that you're going into. And those are just a few examples of general items that would come up as national differences. Okay, getting back down a level, I was kind of giving you an overview of the CB scheme and then hopping down a level to the U.S. participation in the CB scheme. Each country that participates has a member body, which is essentially just a group that represents all the national certification bodies in the U.S. So in the U.S., it's the U.S. National Committee. It's currently run by the National Electrical Manufacturers Association. And on their website, they provide various information on how you can participate. Anybody is welcome to participate. Membership is open to all U.S. national persons or organizations who are directly and materially affected. So you can know about upcoming meetings, different decisions that are being made, those type of things. And on the committee, it's going to be different groups, MET and Intertech and UL and different groups that work within the U.S. And again, if you go to NEMA's website, you can find more information on how to participate, or if you just search for U.S. National Committee through the IEC, I'm sure you'll be able to find it that way as well. And then, as I said, a recognizer is a group that takes a CB report and certificate and grants national certification. MET can help you in that and taking the CB certificate and report and acting as a recognizer and issuing the MET mark. For the U.S., under OSHA regulations, which runs the NRTL program in the U.S., the acceptance of the IECE CB report to grant national certifications requires us to receive the report, a certificate, and a product sample to review all of that for accuracy and consistency and in order to provide U.S. national certification. One of the biggest differences between the two systems as far as the IEC and the U.S. and Canadian system, the U.S. and Canadian system are very closely aligned. Our accreditation bodies here in the U.S. and Canada do require continued compliance. The IEC is a one-time test report and certificate. So basically, you're taking a look at the product, evaluating it to a standard, and providing a report based on that evaluation. It doesn't consider, really future things. You have to go back and get it tested. The U.S. and Canadian system both require regular factory follow-up inspections, which are basically focused on both quality and the actual product itself to make sure that what was tested or certified is what's actually being sold onto the market. MET CB scheme scope, information technology equipment, measurement, control, and laboratory use, audio, video, and medical equipment are our main focus. We're, again, a recognizer for tool and some household standards. The reason for the difference there is a lot of these standards aren't as harmonized. Household, for example, is a category where there are many national standards. The UL still uses various standards that aren't harmonized with the IEC system, and as that continues to harmonize, we will see increased value in that and join those so that you'll be able to test it once and get certified through MET. IT is obviously the biggest category. 43% of all CB certificates over the last 3 years have been in IT. It's our main focus here. And just going over kind of I mean, you can kind of imagine what that covers. It's a broad standard. It's many hundreds of pages long and has a lot of requirements for various different types of equipment. Basically, we're at 2nd edition of information technology equipment, 3rd edition of 61010, 7th edition 6065, and 3rd edition of 60601 for medical. Another question that has kind of come up a lot is IEC 62368-1, which is audio, video, information, and communication technology equipment. Basically, this is a new standard that we're starting to see more and more requests for. It's becoming more and more accepted, and it will eventually replace 6950 and 60065. It's basically a blending of those two standards, at least the scope of those standards and the equipment that is covered. It's a completely new standard in the way that it covers equipment, but the scope of the equipment that it covers is going to be a blend of 6065 and 6950. Basically, those kind of technologies are becoming almost interchangeable in how you address, say, a digital projector or something like that. Is it really IT? Is it audio, video? There's different guides that tell you what to use, but basically IEC 62368 has been created to address that concern. And we're looking at about a 5-year transition period for 62368. Over the next 5 or so years, we're really going to start to see it in the next year or so really take hold and start to really gain momentum as the standard to replace those other two standards. And it is a hazard-based safety engineering standard. It kind of takes the stance of looking at a hazard and then addressing that individual hazard, and that kind of means instead of just a clause-by-clause evaluation of the standard, looking at everything, you kind of want to look at the hazards of the standards and address those instead of the full clause-by-clause. Like I said, 2015 is really what we're looking for as far as full implementation, and UL 62368, which is the corresponding U.S. national standard, has now been accepted as an NRTL standard. So you really start to see that grow. So that was recently accepted in December of last year. So a lot of times these things take time to build momentum and transition, and obviously we're going to have a nice long transition period as many manufacturers use 6950 and 6065 now, and it's a completely different way of looking at things. So, okay, submission for IEC type testing. So this is kind of a brief overview of some of the items that MET would ask for if we were going into a test program with you for CB testing. Basically, we're going to need a test sample, maybe multiple samples, depending on the product type and what we anticipate having to do. We're going to need documentation, operator's manual, setup manual, block diagrams, schematics, manufacturer's data sheets, component certification information, very important in this process to know, what's going into the product. We have to look at every component and evaluate it and make sure that it is okay for the application. Obviously we'll also need the applicant, trademark, manufacturer, and factory information, so we can include that in our report and certificate. And there is MET has a full list of items, and the link is here, and you'll be able to click on that once I distribute the presentation. And basically that'll show you everything that we need in the beginning of a test program to really get going. That's going to be really vital to helping us get through the test program. The compliance investigation process, basically the compliance investigation typically begins with a constructional review of your product against the product safety standard. Basically that's the non-destructive part. Testing can be destructive, but obviously it's not always destructive. And then typical tests would include current power measurements, temperature testing, abnormal operations, dielectric strength testing, and basically a lot of abnormal. There's a lot more testing that could come up, but those are the basic tests that you're going to see in probably any test program. And if compliant, we would issue you a letter as soon as we know it's compliant and reviewed. We would issue a letter stating that it complies with the standard, and then it would be followed by the actual IEC report and test certificate. If non-compliant, we issue a findings report to you, which kind of summarizes clause by clause what needs to still be addressed. Basically, that would provide you with kind of an open items list. Sometimes maybe some documentation is open, or there's an issue with a component, or a test failed. But we're gonna compile all that information and provide it to you in a tabular format list, so you can look at the clause in the standard, look at the requirement, and provide us with the documentation. And usually those open items lists, if you can give us everything on that list, we can close it out. Okay, really, the duration is another popular question. Everybody wants to, how long is this going to take? Duration is dependent on the product category, the overall readiness of the submittal. You know, are all those documents ready, or is the package ready to go? Have they all been addressed? You know, obviously, if there's a tight timeline, Met can help you meet that. We're here to help you. You know, if you need a shorter completion time, you know, we can discuss that and figure out how to do it and make it happen. Project tracking is important. You know, you can keep track of your project. We use a software called MetTrack. With this software, you can log in to a secure internet site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it'll list various tasks in that job, and you're actually seeing, you know, another side of what we're actually filling out. We fill out a checklist on every project, and you're seeing a form of that, so you can see where the project actually stands, and various notes that have been made in the project, various you know, documents that are available to you be made through there, and all kinds of stuff. And really, communication is key. When you come to Met, you'll have, you know, an account manager who will help you. You'll have a project coordinator on every project and a project engineer. You know, and these people are open to you. You'll have their contact information. You can feel free to email them, call them, discuss the project with them, and figure out, you know, where it stands, and if there's anything open, if there's anything missing, you know, we'll discuss that with you, and, you know, we're always there. I think that's super important to stay in contact throughout a project. Another question that I was asked a bit about, I've given this presentation before, and, you know, that being said, if filling out the feedback forms, you think something needs to change, you think something needs to be added, you think, you know, you want to hear more on a certain topic, say that. You know, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to help you or answer you in any way possible. Or perhaps we could have another webinar or something if there's enough interest. But one of the questions I was asked about is, you know, can you test at your site? Or do they all need to be done at Met's facility? There are certain programs designed through the CB scheme to be able to allow you to utilize Met personnel or your personnel and test at your site. And this slide kind of provides a brief overview of the procedures available on the IECE's website for what they title as manufacturer test labs or customer test facilities. They're moving more to the customer test facilities wording to make it seem like you don't actually need a lab to be able to test these things. If you have the equipment, or Met can bring their own equipment, we can make it happen. And TMP at the bottom, the first one, is testing it at manufacturer's premises. That would be Met coming out to your site and performing all the testing. And then WMT would be the next one. That would be us witnessing the manufacturer testing. And then there's other programs, SMT, RMT, which is supervised manufacturer's testing, and recognized manufacturer's testing, which are kind of advanced programs where we work with you and qualify the manufacturer to do the testing themselves, or we wouldn't have to always be on site for every single test that you're doing. Those are kind of advanced programs, and if you have any questions about those, please feel free to let me know. And this is kind of the concept that they're moving to, again, with the customer test facilities. You'll see that the general concept is the same, but it's kind of a confidence building process. Again, the stage 1, 2, 3, 4 are pretty much identical to testing at the manufacturer's premises, witness manufacturer's testing, the supervised manufacturer's testing, and recognized manufacturer's testing. They're trying to build confidence in this system for recognizers to have confidence in recognizing test certificates where the testing was done at a manufacturer's premises. And we really need to comply with anything that we need to comply with in the lab, we need to comply with out in the field. Okay, as far as CB test reports and certificates, a CB certificate from the NCB states that a product complies with a standard with basic information, applicant, manufacturer, factory, product information, and all that. To illustrate the growth of the CB scheme, in 2010, over 71,000 CB certificates were issued. In comparison, in the year 2000, only 19,000 CB certificates were issued. So you can see it's gained that much in those 10 years, and that many countries participating adds more and more value to this process. Another thing that I'm often asked about is CB scheme marking. There's no real marking for the CB scheme. Again, it goes back to the concept of it's one test, one certificate, and then multinational certification marks. You actually can't, per the CB scheme, make reference on your product to the CB scheme or the fact that it's been tested to the CB scheme. It's basically you're supposed to be using the CB testing to get national certification marks. Again, that's not saying it won't change in the future, but that's the system as it stands today. Another question, CB versus CE. Often asked about what's really the difference. CE testing is testing for European compliance. It's making sure that you meet the European directives, and that can be first party depending on the product. Manufacturers might be able to do that themselves, but the IECE involves an actual test laboratory and certification body issuing a report and certificate. So that's really the main difference there is first party, third party, and the overall acceptance of that certificate or declaration. Some of the more frequently asked questions, and I'll take a look at all the questions that you have. I see some questions popping up here in the bottom box there, and I will get to all of those. But these are some of the common ones that might address some of these already. Are the differences, national differences, are they available to the public? Definitely, yes. They are available to the public, but they do. You do have to pay for them. You can buy the actual differences from the IEC. Subscription services are available. Oftentimes, I find that to be very helpful, especially if medical manufacturer, there might be multiple standards or multiple differences that you need to get a hold of. That can be very helpful. What if the applicant manufacturer is located in a country outside where there is no IECE member body? Basically, that means that they're working outside of the CB scheme. You can get your product tested wherever you want to for this purpose. Is there a license fee or annual dues for CB certification? No, there's no annual license or fee for having a CB certification. It's just that original test program fee. And how long are CB certifications valid for? CB certificates are valid for as long as the certified product remains the same as it was in the initial certification, unless it was canceled by the applicant. Basically, as long as your product is the same, and you have that CB certificate, an NCB should accept that. Again, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you again for attending. We'll get into the questions and answer sessions here. Any follow-up questions? I put my email in this presentation, and people know that maybe people that have contacted me in the past. I'm always open to any questions that you have, and I will find. If I don't know the answer, I will find the answer for you. So please do feel free to use that contact information. So again, I'd like to thank you. Take some questions. I'll help answer any program questions, and my director, Rick Cooper, will be able to answer any technical questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the box, and we'll go ahead and get into those.
That concludes the presentation portion of this webinar. Tomorrow, an archived copy of this webinar will be available on metlabs.com. We will send a follow-up email with a link to this file. Now we will answer questions. If you have a question, please type it into the questions area of your control panel. For questions we can easily address now, we will read the question aloud and then give the answer.
Okay, so I see one of these questions. Which MTL or CTF programs does MET participate? Any body can participate in any of these programs that they want. So if you're interested in one of these programs, let us know. We could do witness manufacturers testing at your premises. And the same person also noted that RMT procedure has been closed. Yeah, I know that. But it's still on the 2027, so I was still there. They need to update that document. So there really is no recognized manufacturer's test program anymore. It's just supervised manufacturer's test program will be the next one up. So one of these questions here, is NRTL listing needed for sale in the U.S.? NRTL listing in the U.S. is not mandatory unless it's a product used within the workplace. OSHA only regulates products used within the workplace, and those are required to be NRTL listed. And your second question is, if you have a CB report, can you submit that to MET for NRTL certification? And yes, of course. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to answer me. Or feel free to email me. I'm sorry, after the presentation. Oh, okay, yeah. Is there a public directory that shows manufacturers that own CB certificates? That's a good question. There actually is on the IECE website. If you go to the main page, towards the bottom, it'll say deliverables. And if you click on that, it'll take you to the CB test certificate database. You can look up certificates there by number or by lab that issued or by product name. Various ways you can search that. That's not something that a lot of people know, so I'm glad that somebody pointed that one out. How many products did we certify in 2013? I don't know that off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the CB scheme website. But again, going back to that last question, if you went to that website, pulled up the directory of CB scheme certified products, clicked on MET 2013, you could find that full list of products.
Another question here. How do we determine if CB is required for export versus suggested? It seems it is often sold when not necessary. What brings the level of requirement forward? That's really driven by the market you intend to place your product into, as well as quite often by the buyer of that product in that market. Could be a distributor, an importer, a retailer. Any of these may wish to enforce local national requirements and may impose a CB scheme certification requirement on the importation of that product. You'd really have to check directly with the particular country's regulatory requirements and or with your buyers directly for that kind of information.
Okay, there's some direct questions here involving, you know, maybe a question on a standard or something like that. I think if you have something like that and it's very, very specific, you know, follow up with me via email. Do we cover this standard or that standard? And I can really dig into that further for you. Does India still accept CB reports? I recently saw that the IECE met with India and the BIS in the new system that they've created in India, and they do still accept CB reports. That was one of the outcomes of the IECE meeting. You know, these people are really out there pushing for acceptance and pushing for you without you even knowing it. Maybe that they're pushing for acceptance of those reports and certificates. I know there was some concern in India, so that has been addressed, and they said that they will continue to accept CB reports and certificates. Okay, yeah, one of the questions, popular question, and I've talked about this one in the past, but this could be its own, like I said, own entire presentation. IEC 60601 3rd edition, and the corresponding standard for the U.S. is AAMI ES 60601-1, and the acceptance within the NRTL program. OSHA has now finally accepted AAMI ES 60601 into the NRTL program, so hopefully soon you'll start to see labs being accepted for that standard, and then we'll be able to issue NRTL certifications for 60601 3rd edition based off of the 3rd edition CB reports.
Somebody's asking if there's an EMC counterpart to the CB scheme you've been talking about. That would be the safety CB scheme. And yes, there is an EMC CB scheme. It is not as large or as widely recognized as the one that John has been presenting on today with respect to safety, however.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions here, so we're just yeah, does CB scheme work only for products that have IEC standards with national deviations? Yes, I mean, it can work for you. You can get an IEC report and certificate for an IEC standard, and depending on the country, see if that's acceptable. But it works best with countries that have corresponding national standards. Can we get electronic copy of these slides by email? They'll be posted to our website. There will be a PDF made available on the website. How are multiple manufacturing locations handled for the applicant of the CB scheme? Manufacturing locations are only really listed on the CB certificate. Basically on your certificate will be the applicant information, trademark information, manufacturer information if that's different from applicant, and it'll also list all the various manufacturing locations that you listed for your product. Basically it'll be listed on kind of a second page of the CB certificate.
Okay. Here's a question. Somebody is asking us to confirm there's no license fee for CB, and also asking about factory follow-up fees that were mentioned. It is correct. There are no license fees to the holder of the certificate in the CB scheme. The testing lab and certification bodies have to abide by rules and regulations and maintain our accreditation, and those fees are fees that we pay as part of our ability to offer that service to clients. As far as factory inspection fees are concerned, that's going to vary depending on the agency. An agency such as MET that has a worldwide network of laboratories and local representatives can provide these inspections at reasonable fees, reasonable minimal fees to cover the inspection, which only has to take place usually no more than twice per year.
Yeah. Okay, I see. This is a good question. What happens if testing is done prior to the national differences being released? For example, IEC standard exists, but European has not issued their differences yet. Would a CB test report be rejected in Europe? Would retesting be needed if EN version is released in the future? Basically, you would have to have those differences covered in the future. So if you went and the standard came out immediately, but the corresponding recognizing body hasn't issued their differences, you would have to have them have either them or the original body evaluate the differences to issue the national certifications, which does happen. Okay.
If you have additional unanswered questions, please contact us via phone or email. Tomorrow we will send a follow-up email that will include a link to the presentation. That concludes our webinar. Thank you for joining us today.